right. Looks like we are up and running here. A few more seconds for people to funnel in. We are going to be doing live severe weather coverage this evening. Got a pretty big night ahead of us here. Some potential for some nasty storms. And that is obviously not going to be a good thing. Wait 2 seconds here. Get everything up and running. All right, awesome. So we've got some severe storms right now. We've got one tornadic storm that is going to be approaching near Peoria, Illinois. And this is a very dangerous storm right now. You can see there's actually a lot of rotation with it, and this is not going to be a good thing. You've got pretty strong circulation right here. In fact, we'll kind of put in a new storm motion there. You can see pretty strong rotational couplet right near Banner. This has actually produced a tornado within the past while. You can see a tornado here that was near Bryant that occluded, and a new circulation is beginning to take shape on the southern side. A very classic supercell as well. Definitely a very classic supercell structure. Got a big hail core off to the north right now. So this is going to be prompting a severe thunderstorm warning out here. This includes towards Hannah City, Norwood, Peoria Heights, towards North Perkin, South Perkin, some weird town names. But those areas are going to be included in that severe thunderstorm warning. And you've got then that tornado warning here. Right now it's a pretty broad circulation. Certainly there is a stronger meso aloft here, but a broad circulation, and there's actually been some reports of a tornado on the ground with this thing as of a while ago. I was kind of scrolling through Twitter here, see if we can get anything. A couple of tornado warned storms as well over there in Iowa, so we'll jump over to the Des Moines, Iowa radar site real quick. This storm earlier had a tornado warning on it, and this is no longer tornado warned. There's no threat to North Carolina. Nope, no threat to North Carolina. I think this is going to be kind of exclusively across portions of the northern U.S., kind of over this, we'll kind of show you, over this broad area over the next couple of days, or really over the next day. That's where I think all the severe weather is going to be, and of course down south as well, but North Carolina is going to be fine. But we've got a couple of severe storms out here across the Iowa area, Des Moines. Got a couple of good hailstorms. This is kind of forming that linear squall line that we were talking about. You can kind of see this line of storms stretching for really several hundred miles from all the way from Kansas into Iowa. So this is along that line of storms that we were talking about earlier in today's video. And then you've got this severe warned storm here that did produce an earlier tornado, but that storm seems to be occluding and in the process of weakening. You can kind of see that it's no longer got that hail core, and even if you go aloft, the reflectivities aloft are not all that impressive. And we can actually just kind of look at a sounding, or just kind of look at the area in here. It's just not all that impressive at all. So not really seeing anything that would suffice for that. Actually, I gotta throw something in here to the system real quick. Give me 2 seconds and then we'll be able to get something here. I just gotta put something into the system real quick for our program, because the other things like to not be there for some reason. So Let's see here. Let's see. Huh. It should be in there. Okay. So let's try this. There we go. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So we can see now that, again, this is kind of that was our storm earlier, and you can kind of see that it's just not overly impressive compared to where it's at now. And now you've got a storm that's just, it's not as good. And this is an old volume scan, so we're going to wait till the next one kind of comes in. But the storm itself is just not overly impressive at this particular point. Go back to our Lincoln, Illinois storm over here. Pretty juicy looking supercell over here. Again, I do think right now the greatest threat is going to be hail. You can see a very nice hail core aloft with this thing, looking at about 14,000 feet here. I'm sorry, 9,000 feet. And you can see some very significant hail on this as well. We're looking at about 67 dBz here, about 9,000 feet. So very significant hail core. I mean, even some better hail core here, 71 dBz at about 5,500 feet. So very significant hail aloft, but the rotation on the storm is not as present as it used to be. You can kind of see again, you had that occlusion, but a very significant tornado a little while ago that moved through. In fact, this was producing a tornado debris signature. You can kind of see right here, little TDS in there. I can kind of just smooth that out. But that was it a little while ago. It's definitely not there anymore. You kind of see a little bit of a debris fallout even. So that does indicate that this could be, or could have been a significant tornado with that type of debris fallout. But storm relative, there's not really a lot of circulation here. So that's kind of the good news in terms of our Perkin storm and North Peoria storm. Just doesn't really look all that impressive right now, but I think it is in the process of cycling. And then we've got this other supercell kind of up here. It's not really doing a lot, but this will be something to monitor as this heads in the general direction, really, kind of on that same trajectory, closer towards the Ottawa area as we progress over the next couple of hours. But other than that, there's actually no other significant storms. You got a new tornado warning back on that storm in Iowa, so we'll kind of go back to that, look at our Iowa storm. And again, not really seeing a whole lot, but there is a meso aloft here, so that would kind of be one thing, but just not really seeing a significant tornado threat with that. Yeah, it's just not really there. I mean, there's a little bit, and I definitely agree that there's a meso aloft. You can kind of see it right here. Just at about 14,000 feet, there's definitely a meso. But not really seeing a tornado threat in that, but there's still a warning. So Malkin, Brooklyn, Hartwick, basically up towards, really up towards like Belle Plaine. In that area, significant hail core on this though. I mean, we're talking over an inch. You can kind of see our maximum expected hail size here at about 1.21 inches, kind of right in the center there. And there's definitely going to be a pretty good hail core just to the east of Grinnell. So definitely could be putting down some significant hail. And then again, we'll be watching these other storms. Kind of got this one like rogue storm on the north here, and I'd be curious to see if that doesn't go tornado or try to beat a tornadic cell in the next like few hours as it heads towards the better moisture. But not really seeing much on this storm right now, which is certainly the good news. And then kind of jumping back here to our Perkins storm again, not seeing a whole lot. There does seem to be some enhanced velocities though up on the northern side of this couplet. Typically we see this just prior to tornado genesis with these enhanced reflectivity values coming into the core. So that will be something to monitor as we get closer in time. Got a new mesoscale discussion. Basically, SPC just kind of noting this cell and calling it an isolated localized threat here, but it's not entirely clear how long this is going to last because the environment is capped over here. So that will be something to keep in mind as well. But not really seeing too much right now. There's we can look at the debris signature, and I don't really see anything here that indicates tornadic debris. So I think this is mainly a large hail threat, and actually you can pop a look at that. Yeah, it seems more to me like a large hail threat than anything. We can actually kind of look at that. Yeah, you notice some pretty significant hail cores. I mean, that almost up to about 30,000 feet there in the previous scan. But definitely got hail in the low levels there. So that is going to be something kind of worth monitoring, is this hail core that we could be seeing some hail kind of reach the ground there. And again, this would kind of be right over towards really about North Perkin, Bellevue, West Peoria, kind of in the Peoria metro region, Norwood as well. Could see some very large hail. We're talking over an inch in diameter. Again, maximum expected hail size. This thing looks to be just about 1.5, near about, well, 1.25, 1.5, roughly in that ballpark there. Again, just kind of taking a look here, we'll kind of hook slice this thing, and you notice that the signature definitely got a hail core aloft with that thing. You can kind of even see a little bit of a flying eagle structure. This is our inflow. It seems like our inflow is right in here, so you've got a pretty good structure there at the surface promoting some pretty large hail, and that will likely be the case for the next couple of runs here. But the storm is moving into a capped environment. The Lincoln sounding did indicate a pretty capped environment, and that's one of the problems that I think we're going to have, is dealing with a potentially capped environment as we progress throughout the evening. We're also watching a few other storms as they approach, and just to the east of Des Moines, Iowa. This one's got a tornado warning on it as well. Not really seeing a huge circulation with this. So we're going to be monitoring this storm. It's not particularly intense. It does have some hail to it, about 1.25 there. So we could be seeing some pretty significant hail. And we'll be watching these other storms too, a couple of severe thunderstorms kind of near the Des Moines radar site here. Again, just kind of approaching Des Moines proper. Nothing significant in this, not seeing any circulation, so no real tornado threat there. And along the line itself, this is mainly going to be a damaging wind, large hail, but could see some spin-up tornadoes as that low-level shear does increase throughout the evening. And most of our other cells to the north are also behaving. No warnings on any of these storms, so that is certainly a good thing at the moment. Popping back, looking at our Peoria storm, this I think is going to probably have the tornado warning allowed to expire. There is a signature aloft here, and that, again, it's not an impressive signature, but there is a signature kind of near Kingston Mills and Mapleton and Glassford, but this is not an impressive signature. So assuming that this holds, I think the Weather Service office here in Lincoln will probably discontinue this tornado warning. And in fact, you can kind of see that the supercell underwent a merger, produced a tornado, and then it looks like that it's now starting to encounter that capped environment, and that just might be the demise of this supercell. Not entirely sure, but it'd be certainly welcomed here. But not really seeing anything that really indicates any significant tornado potential, though. I definitely agree, though, that there's going to be some very large hail. Let's kind of take a look at this again. You know, there's some pretty large hail, mainly all in the lower levels now, under 10,000 feet, according to the radar. But there's this little hail core that still kind of pops up to about 15,000, 20,000 feet in here. And this could still be producing some hail, especially kind of on the backside in the updraft region of the storm. So again, not a significant tornado threat, but is going to be something at least to monitor, certainly. I do not see the Weather Service extending this tornado warning, so that is good news. Yeah, I just don't see a case in which they extend it right now. In fact, you could even say that there might be a little bit of an outflow boundary starting to set up, so we'll have to watch this. Actually, we can see if this is indeed... it doesn't really look like it's outflow, but we could be starting to see the storm transition more to an outflow dominant, meaning that the tornado threat will markedly at least decrease for the time being on this particular cell. We'll have to watch this as well. The storm to the north, this is about 5,000 feet up, but this is showing signs of having a hail core with it. Maximum expected hail size here over an inch, so could be grounds for a severe thunderstorm warning if this signature were to continue, but this will be heading in the general direction here of near Cedar Point, McNabb, Henry, Magnolia, Grainville, Peru, and up towards some of those surrounding vicinities. So this could be a cell to watch, but not seeing any significant severe weather potential with that in terms of tornadoes, at least for now. And then we'll jump down to our Des Moines, Iowa storm, or just to the east of Des Moines. Again, this is not... this honestly looks like it's trying to take more of a left turn now. So this might not be tornadic anymore. There's still a tornado warning on it. In fact, it apparently was a confirmed tornado. So this is a confirmed tornado apparently, although the radar signature is on that one as well. So let's see if we see a debris signature. No. Yeah. No debris signature with this, so not really thinking that there's a tornado on the ground, at least as of the moment. So I think as of this time, we should be good on this particular cell. I don't think there's a tornado here. Jump back to our Lincoln storm. Nothing really ongoing here as well. Sorry, my throat is kind of dry, so if I have to keep like clearing my throat, that's why. But this storm seems to be on a weakening trend. Actually, they are going to continue the tornado warning, so a new tornado warning on the storm. This includes places like Peoria, Perkin, North Perkin, over towards East Peoria, over towards Morton, Washington, Deer Creek, Goodfield, just to the west of Eureka, Metamore, and Germantown Hills as well. Also, Peoria Heights is right on the edge of that tornado warning as well. So this is a brand new tornado warning, radar indicated, and 1 inch in diameter hail. It looks like actually 1.75. So this is moving towards the northeast of 40. And this tornado warning is in effect until 8:30 Central Time or 9:30 Eastern. So they did extend the tornado warning, but I do not think that there's much in the way right now of circulation. So again, we're going to be monitoring this storm. Not really particularly intense as of the moment. Still got some hail. I would definitely be interested to see if there's any hail reports that come out here at Peoria because of the fact this could be producing some significant hail. Of course, Weather Service here going for just about 2 inches in diameter of hail with this, but the radar estimated hail right now has come down to under severe limits, which is certainly some good news. But still likely going to be some hail in this storm, but you can see the storm has markedly decreased its intensity from when it was producing that strong tornado. And the echo tops as well, it seems like, yeah, they've also come down. So we're not seeing that super intense nature to the storm anymore, which is certainly good news. and the circulation is definitely weakened out. In fact, there's maybe arguably a broad meso back here towards really Bartonville, but elsewise, I really think that yeah, we're kind of losing that hook on that storm. You can kind of see it here. You're starting to really lose that hook echo. Certainly not like it was back here. We'll kind of just show you that this is kind of your forward flank over here, and then you got your rear inflow and your hook echo down here. This is when it was still pretty intense, but it ends up looking much like it's no longer really got that oomph to it. And I think it's owed to the capping in the environment still. We'll have to watch this storm. That's perking up on radar too. I got a little bit of a hail signature with that as it's approaching Henry. Potential for some significant hail with that. No severe warrant on it yet, but I would not be surprised to see that go warrant here in a few. So we'll be watching these storms as well. Let's go ahead and jump back to the Des Moines, Iowa radar site. This one's trying to wrap up a little bit. It's got my eye here. It's definitely wrapping up. You can kind of see where's this kind of this fluffy little thing here in supercell structure, but it is trying to wrap up on that southern side again. But the rotation, yeah, not really seeing any right there. So there is a report here of 1-inch hail, so this is still producing some pretty significant hail. Certainly enough to destroy a few windshields, that's for sure. So you don't want to be driving. But I think the storm is going to be on the northern side of this warning. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this warning expire, because it's just not doing much. They'll be watching these other cells out here. Some potential supercell trying to get going right now towards Des Moines proper. Probably got some hail coming down. And then we'll be watching these other cells along the line from that should be approaching the Kansas City area within a few hours. Probably we're looking here in about an hour and a half, potentially 2 hours for those storms to arrive in Kansas City. And this thing just is not really showing much. So that's my eye. It's a little curious. Got that nice little hook echo there, but not really seeing any significant structure with that. Go back to our Lincoln storm. Yeah, that's falling apart. That is falling apart. That is certainly some good news. Don't think we're going to be seeing a tornado with that anytime soon, which is certainly good. So yeah, I really do not think we'll be seeing a tornado with this particular storm. I think that what the Peoria storm is probably going to be weakening if I had to take a guess. Just based on that radar signature, you can kind of see a little bit of that hook still left there towards Lake Perkin, but I think the storm is probably going to try to cycle, but I just don't believe the storm is going to be able to re-intensify. I think that's, again, owed to the capping in the environment that was indicated by the Lincoln sounding this evening. So I think that for the most part, this Peoria storm is mainly going to be a hail producer for now. Excuse me. So I think for the most part, this Peoria storm is mainly going to be a hail producer. It actually just passed over the airport here, but this is mainly going to be a hail and really the potential for just some heavy rainfall, flooding, gusty winds. Not really seeing a huge tornado threat with it now, although it might try to, cycle and put down another tornado, but right now I just don't think that's going to happen. And then looking at our Des Moines storm again, it's trying to dig back down, trying to get established. Not really a whole lot of rotation with that either. So the storm is going to be heading, though, pretty close to Cedar Rapids over the next couple of hours. It's probably going to head to the north here, probably towards Center Point, maybe towards Mount Auburn, Vinton, Shellisburg. But overall, I think the threat with this storm as well is pretty low for now, but it is trying to dig back down and establish itself a mesocyclone. You can kind of see that if we actually go aloft here, we'll go back to our two panels here. If we actually kind of go aloft, we notice that there is a little bit of a meso here, but it just doesn't really look particularly intense. But we'll have to see how that kind of plays out again. That just looks to me more like a cyclical supercell, probably not able to sustain itself. Just the environment is so hostile today, and that's kind of been one of the, I guess, saving graces from a major severe weather outbreak. But this is also going to be heading towards, Venen and Elbron over the next couple of minutes here. Should miss Belle Plaine here, and I do not think they're going to extend this warning. This is apparently was a confirmed tornado, but I don't think it is. Although that is a curious signature, but that's not rotation associated. So yeah, I just don't really think we're going to see much in the way of tornadic activity out of that storm, at least for now. And then again, I think this Peoria storm is, well, I think it's on its last leg here. Although, again, certainly some pretty stout hail with it. I mean, we can actually look here at a kind of a quick hail indicated sounding again. Yeah, just really seeing everything down here at the surface under really about 15,000 feet. So I definitely think that this is going to be more of a wind threat for now. Small hail is definitely still possible with this thing, but I think this is starting to weaken out, thankfully. So if you're just kind of joining us here, again, we're kind of keeping tabs on the severe weather threat this evening. We've got a storm right now near Peoria that did drop a pretty substantial tornado, it looked like, just a little while ago when it was passing Banner and near Bryant, Illinois. But that storm has since weakened now as it's entered the Peoria area and seems to be on its last leg, hopefully on its way to dissipating. And then we're watching a storm right now to the east of Des Moines. This is approaching places like Belle Plaine here and Venen and Elbron. This is a storm that has had a history of producing tornadoes, some pretty photogenic tornadoes is from what it actually looked like. But I do think that the severe weather threat, while there in this storm as well, I think the tornado threat is going to be lessening as we head throughout the next while. I don't really see it sparking up on anything. In fact, I mean, there's barely even a meso to this. I mean, you could call this a broad circulation here, but that's really about as best as you can really get it on that storm. So I just don't think we're going to be seeing that much of a significant threat there. You kind of see our storm again kind of perking up just a tad within the recent couple of frames. Looking at our hail threat, again, some hail with this, certainly up towards about an inch to potentially even an inch and a half, but I'm not really seeing that tornado threat, which is certainly good news. So I just think that we're going to be dealing mainly with, again, kind of a hail and wind threat as this starts to also encounter the same problem as all these other storms have today, which is there's just so much capping in the atmosphere, and I think the better dynamics won't arrive till very late this evening, which is certainly some good news. But our tornado warning for Peoria has expired, so that is good. We are down to only one tornado warning at this particular point, so that is certainly some good news. So again, just to kind of recap, we've had a potentially significant tornado that passed very close to Bryant. In fact, pretty much right over here. This was a very significant tornado. Had gate-to-gate shear over 120 miles per hour at this particular point as it passed very close to Bryant and St. David. That tornado occluded, weakened, and then the storm has been on a weakening trend since then and has not produced a tornado as far as I'm aware since that particular point. Now our storm is sitting to the east of Peoria. It has now cleared Peoria, so the tornado warning, like I said, has expired. Just a severe thunderstorm warning, and that will likely get downgraded as well because the storm is undergoing a rapid weakening. You can see just a tad bit of a meso here, but the storm is undergoing a rapid weakening, and I think, again, it's pretty much owed to that capping inversion that's still present. So this storm is rapidly weakening, and I don't think poses any more threat for a tornado, at least in the near term. In our Des Moines storm, watching maybe some hints of a circulation there towards Chelsea. I think that's how you pronounce it. Just around that southern edge, but it's, yeah, I mean, it's very broad, so I'm not even sure if you would call that a circulation at this particular point in time. So we're going to be watching this other storm too. This right now just passing to the east of Des Moines. This has a severe thunderstorm warning on it, mainly owed to the hail threat. You can see maximum expected near just 1.5 inches. We'll actually take a look here at some of the volumetric scans coming off of this storm, and you can definitely see pretty significant hail core with that. We're looking up towards about 15 to 20,000 feet of pretty significant hail, and that is going to be mainly owed to the fact of the matter that, again, very steep lapse rates are contributing to a significant hail threat today. But again, that seems to be about 15 to 20,000 feet of hail in there, so that definitely poses a near-term threat for significant hail over 1.5 inches in diameter. And again, this particular storm here, it's just not really doing a whole lot. I think overall, our storm is probably undergoing a weakening trend along with our Peoria storm, which is certainly good news. So I don't think that is really going to play too much. And then we'll take a look here at our Fort Smith, Arkansas radar. We have a couple of storms forming down to the south right now near Texarkana, and this will be moving it to near Arkadelphia over the next couple of hours. This will be generally moving off towards kind of the northeast, east-northeast, and these eventually will pose a greater risk for tornadoes and severe weather in the overnight hours. Again, I don't think it's going to be these particular cells, but I do think we're going to have to watch this particular area, kind of highlighted in here, as we progress throughout the rest of the evening, and then that eventually will spread. I think this whole area has a risk of seeing some pretty significant severe weather as we head into the overnight hours, but hopefully that does not happen. So definitely have a way to receive, multiple ways to receive warnings, because tonight could be particularly bad in this area as well. So I think at this particular point, I think we're basically just down to one tornado warning at this point. Yeah, down to one tornado warning, which is certainly some good news. Again, looking at our Peoria storm, not really seeing a whole lot there, which is certainly some good news. And then we'll kind of back out here and look at our Des Moines, Iowa storm. And yeah, I do agree that they should not continue the tornado warning, and I don't think they're going to. Mainly, they're going to continue the severe thunderstorm warning. Places like Mount Auburn, Urbana, Shellisburg, Van Horn, Keystone, over there towards Belle Prairie or Belle Plaine. Those areas, severe thunderstorm warning, mainly for 60-mile-per-hour winds, large hail. And also got to keep in mind, severe storm down here, not particularly favorable for tornadoes right now. In fact, I think that's a little outflow. Yeah, it's definitely an outflow boundary you can kind of see. So it's riding along an outflow boundary, means that the storm is generally outflow dominant, not a huge tornado threat, at least in the meantime. And a couple of other significant severe storms out here capable of producing some very large hail near Macksburg, over towards Winterset, Iowa. Of course, that was a place hit by an EF4 back in 2022, I do believe, is when that was hit by a EF4 tornado. But otherwise, yeah, our Chelsea, our storm up here is dissipating as well. So I think we'll be down to 0 tornado warnings after this one expires, which is certainly some good news. And I think we'll just be left with some severe thunderstorm warnings. So I think for the most part, we should be all right with that. I'll be watching this storm here, though. It definitely has my eye, but again, it seems to be outflow dominant given that there's an outflow boundary here, so not really looking at a huge, significant tornado threat, at least in the short term. Metro Lincoln storm, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much on its last leg as well, so that's definitely some very good news as well. It does not look like there's any remaining circulation in this storm either, so that is certainly some very positive and encouraging news. Could be some large hail still. Probably a special weather statement going to go out for that. But elsewise, I just don't think we're going to see too much of a significant severe threat with that. And then again, our Chelsea storm seems to be dying as well. So I think what we're going to do, because we're about to be down to 0 tornado warnings, I think what we're going to do is take a quick break here. We'll just kind of keep it on the Des Moines, Iowa radar site here since that's where our tornado warning is, and we'll be back in a few short minutes. All right, so we're back here. So taking a look here at kind of the latest information, our tornado warning has expired. So we're down to no tornado warnings. But what we're going to do is, since we have a little bit of downtime, we'll be watching that storm. But since we have a little bit of downtime, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look here at the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center. So we'll go ahead and move this over here. And we can see that so far today we've only had 7 tornado reports, but we've had a total of just about 300 reports. Mainly all of them have been hail reports today, although we've had 7 tornado reports. So the latest day 1 convective outlook right now removes the moderate risk for severe storms across Iowa and Illinois, which is a thing that personally, should have been done a while ago. At least my opinion, but the moderate risk has been removed. I just don't think we're going to see that much more of a significant tornado threat along this northern mode. But we still do have that risk. We'll get to that here in a minute. And then we also have a moderate risk right now in the southern area, the southern risk area. And again, this is mainly going to be an overnight nocturnal threat. So we're probably looking well past the time you put your kids to sleep, well past the time that most people are up. We're talking about probably 2, 3, 4 in the morning. But the tornado threat, again, is elevated, 15 hatched, meaning there's a 15% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given point. This hatched area indicates the potential for significant tornadoes in this vicinity, so EF2 or greater. Again, that threat is maximized this evening. We can put on the cities here from near Little Rock and Springfield, Missouri, south into portions of far southeastern Oklahoma. And then that 10% area does include places like Jefferson, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, Peoria, Illinois, and to the east of Des Moines. But again, I think that the greatest tornado threat is going to be in the south this evening for sure. Again, wind 30% area across most of the enhanced risk area with a broad 5 and 15% surrounding that, and still some significant hail, especially in our northern mode because we've got very steep low-level lapse rates, and that's going to contribute to really intense updrafts and fat instability, fat cape, and that's what a lot of storms like to produce, some very significant hail, and we've already seen that today. So again, our greatest threat right now is going to be in the south this evening for those stronger, more longer tracked, long-lived tornadoes. That's going to be well after dark, probably 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning local time. So I think we're going to be waiting a while, but I do think there's going to be a very serious threat. Again, we have about 1.2 million people included in this 15% area, so it is imperative to understand that there is a very substantial risk this evening, very worrisome for sure, and so everyone needs to have multiple ways to receive warnings as we progress throughout the rest of this evening. Now, taking a look at tomorrow's forecast as well, this also might get upgraded to a moderate risk. Again, 10% tornado risk from just about Indianapolis, Peoria, and into Chicago, just near Milwaukee. This includes Detroit, Michigan, which has not been under a 10 hatched region for a long time. So again, this could be upgraded to a tornado-driven moderate risk for tomorrow. 26 million people included in this 10 hatched region. So very important to understand. Significant hail and damaging wind, all a threat as we progress throughout the day tomorrow. So very important to understand that. And even some of our areas, like Memphis and Jackson, up towards Bowling Green, Nashville, Cincinnati, included in that large 5% region. So it's just imperative to understand that even tomorrow, our threat is going to be quite substantial. In fact, I think that we might see a higher end threat tomorrow than we did today. Just the parameter space looks a lot better as we progress throughout the day tomorrow. So that is certainly something that we're going to have to kind of keep in mind. We got a new watch that is being considered here. Looks like this is going to be a severe thunderstorm, I do believe. Yes, this looks to be a severe thunderstorm watch that is going to be coming out likely within the next hour. And again, this is not including that moderate risk vicinity. Our moderate risk area is more kind of down like here. So this is going to be a severe thunderstorm watch generally for damaging wind and hail potential. So still we're going to be watching, let's see, the report's been there, I think. Yeah, 122Z. So this is going to be something that we're going to be monitoring here. This is a cell that does look a little interesting on radar. Not seeing a significant meso. This looks a little interesting here. Got a little bit of a hook with it, so we'll be kind of monitoring this one as this approaches kind of the Colfax area. And then eventually this is going to be over Newton, more than likely here within the next probably about 20 minutes or so. But definitely you could tell there's an outflow boundary right through here. But storms that sit on top of an outflow boundary can ingest that boundary to its benefit and produce tornadoes, because boundaries do increase low-level vorticity and shear. And that becomes pretty favorable for tornadoes to actually go up and form in these otherwise benign cases. So we'll be watching that. We've got a couple of other cells down to the south as well. These mainly are going to be just damaging wind, large hail, but definitely cannot rule out a few embedded tornadoes in that. I think by far this is probably the most interesting cell right now. Going back to our storm, the storm to the north that I've been talking about finally did get severe thunderstorm warned. We're looking at, let's read the warning here. Looks like we've got about 1 in 60, so 1 inch hail, 60 mile per hour winds possible with that. There's no significant tornado indications at this time. We'll actually switch to the radar over here in Chicago to see the storm from a better angle. Just let that load up. And yeah, I definitely do not see there being a significant tornado threat in that area. I just do not see that. Yeah, definitely not. So this seems to be more so just an elevated storm that likely is just damaging wind, large hail at this particular point. So I think really the main storm of interest right now is this Colfax storm. It seems to be ingesting that boundary in. I mean, this seems a little interesting. Hard to tell because there's definitely some side lobe contamination in this area. Based on radar, it just is a little bit contaminated, but look here, definitely some very large hail up about 20,000 feet. You can see that here. We'll actually kind of do that so we can get a better angle on that. You can definitely see some very large hail up here at about 20 to 25,000 feet, and that's going to be looking actually kind of down to the surface there. This is the first live stream I've caught, but I've been watching since 2019. Hey, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that so much. Like, that really means a lot to me. And, you know, thank you for tuning in. I know that's, you know, it's late and overall a boring stream because there's not really a lot going on, and I certainly got to get a much better streaming setup, but I do appreciate those kind words. But we're going to be watching this storm right here. I really think that this is going to be something to monitor. I mean, definitely got some very large hail, 25,000 feet hail core, potentially even extending up just closer to that 30,000 mark. So that's going to be something to monitor. And again, I mean, right now, of course, this is not tornado warned, but it just seems to be ingesting that boundary here, because you can kind of see, we'll look at where the boundary is. It's kind of right here, and that storm is trying to ingest that boundary, and I think that's going to be kind of trying to wrap itself in. So we'll see if it's able to do that or not. So we're going to be watching this storm. Again, it's going to be morphing. It's going to be changing a little bit here in the structure. But overall, I think this is mainly still a large hail threat. I just don't see that significant tornado threat, at least for right now. But we're going to be watching it as it approaches Colfax and Newton. But so far, the radar indicated rotation, not really there. And in fact, I think based on, I mean, there's definitely a meso. I mean, you can tell. You can tell there's a mesocyclone to it. But it is not overly strong. But I'd be monitoring this thing because this thing definitely does have a mesocyclone with it. And in fact, if we were to take a radar cross section, kind of hook slicing here, you can actually kind of see where the inflow is right into this thing. You got your inflow right up there, and you can definitely tell that it is definitely wanting to get that more classical supercell structure. So we'll be watching this thing very closely. I'm going to step away real quick, take a quick water break, and I'll be back in about 2 minutes. Okay, so we're still monitoring this storm near Colfax. It is not tornado warned at this particular point, but you've got a storm near Colfax moving off towards the kind of the northeast, and it's really attached to this outflow boundary, but the overall circulation is pretty broad. I mean, there's a little bit here, but generally speaking, this is a circulation that is not very well put together. And you can definitely see it's got that classic supercell structure to it. Definitely got that hook on the backside. But I think this is mainly a large hail producer, not necessarily a tornado producer. And we'll be watching, again, this particular storm. This dropped the earlier tornado over towards Malcolm. But right now, this is actually not looking like it is going to be producing anything. Probably some small hail as this approaches Vinton and Schellsburg, just past Van Horn, heading up towards Urbiana here and Center Point, but likely this is not going to be a significant tornado producer as we progress out throughout the next couple of hours. And then we'll be watching, again, that particular cell right near Colfax. I am going to be watching that for the potential for some large hail upwards of 2 inches in diameter, and it does have a little circulation with it, but nothing rising to the level of a tornado warning. To answer your question about the stream, honestly, I don't know how long it's going to be. It kind of just depends on what exactly we got going on. I would probably say we'll be streaming for a solid 2-3 hours more, at least baseline, but I mean, we could be here all night if it really is that bad. So it kind of just depends. But it also depends on how long people are willing to watch this for, because not everyone's going to be up late. I thankfully have the privilege of that, so I let the viewers decide. So again, we'll be watching the storm near Colfax. It's not particularly looking like it's going to drop a tornado right now. I just based on the environment, I just don't think this is going to be ready to produce a tornado. But The complicating factor in all of this is the outflow boundary, and you can kind of see it very faintly right here, but it does show up. And it does look like that this outflow boundary might at least try to promote tornadogenesis. But again, it's all going to be deciding on, you know, it just depends, you know. Yeah, I think the cloud is dumping a lot of crying. I think the clouds are just doing a lot of crying, honestly. That's what I've always been taught, I guess. We'll be watching the storm, though. It is going to be coming up on Interstate 80 here, so crossing the interstate very shortly. Does not have a very well, and it's just not got that circulation. Does have a broad meso with it here. I mean, this is up at about 6,000, about 6,500 feet, towards 7,000 feet. Does have a circulation with it. Just a little meso, though. Not something intense. This will be... The worst part of the storm is going to come up on Newton, though, in the next probably about 10 minutes or so. This is going to be crossing into Newton. Could be producing some very large hail, especially on the northern side towards Baxter. This is going to be producing some very large hail as well. So I'm going to take a quick, minute break here, and we're going to come back with some awesome analysis of the environment. So give me about 1 to 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, so time to look at our environment here and exactly what's going on. So this is going to be the observed 0Z guidance, or the 0Z rayobs, weather balloons. So take a look here at some soundings real quick. Let's go ahead and look at Dallas-Fort Worth, shall we? Let's see what's going on in Fort Worth right now. Well, first of all, the thing to notice is that we do have a much better temperature dew point. The dew point depression is not as large, 80 over 68, so 12 degree dew point spread here, which is not too bad, but we still have that elevated mix layer, that warm nose aloft that you can kind of see right here. That warm nose is what is being advected to the north and has been advected to the north during the day today. And so that warm nose is sitting atop of some very steep lapse rates, you can see here almost dry adiabatically here, and some very stout instability in this level here at Dallas Fort Worth this evening. So mixed layer cape, we've got just about 2400 mixed layer cape, and again, that's mainly contributed to the hail threat that we've seen to the north today. Wonky hodograph structure, though. I will say that is a hodograph that is definitely weird. Can't say I've seen a hodograph much like that, but you can see you definitely have some very strong winds in the upper levels, as that 500 millibar trough is kind of, or that the big trough is digging in. Those 500 millibar winds are kind of ripping it to the north. We'll look at Norman, Oklahoma. 0Z sounding from Norman is, again, much more intense. Got a PDS tour on the hazard type. 77 over 66. But again, moisture concerns here. The moist layer really only extends up to just about 1 kilometer or 850 millibars before rapidly deteriorating. But very stout cape here. Again, about 2300 mixed layer, and just about 3000 surface based. And just kind of a quick tip here for anybody who is kind of new to these QTs. Mixed layer cape is always going to be the one that you generally want to use for about 99% of cases. Mixed layer is more representative of the mixing processes in the atmosphere. But the most unstable cape can be used for elevated cases. Just kind of something that I've learned over the years. Pretty stout hodograph, though. Got some curvature in the low levels here. You can kind of see that. But there is some subtle backing here aloft at about 6 to 9 kilometers up. There's definitely some backing in the atmosphere. So not a particularly great tornado sounding there. We'll take a look here at Shreveport, Louisiana. It's getting close now to our moderate risk. And again, that definitely has a sounding that is more of a loaded gun sounding. Definitely got that elevated mixed layer right here. So again, just kind of for reference, that elevated mixed layer originates from the desert southwest, generally speaking over here, and gets advected into our target region. And we are seeing that for today. There we go. We are seeing that for today and this evening. Still got some capping here aloft, just at about, we'll call it about 750 millibars. Got a warm nose here, and that is contributing to at least holding off on the thunderstorm development, at least for now. But that is going to erode, and you've got a pretty decent moist layer here. But that is a pretty stout dry air cap right there. So but above this layer, again, there's just about 2000 mixed layer cape, and the hodograph here is definitely curved in the lowest 3 kilometers, and that definitely will be owing to a more substantial tornado threat, I do believe, later this evening. Don't have anything from Little Rock at this point, but we'll go to Springfield, Missouri, and now we'll start really seeing why we haven't had much in the way of significant severe weather. Look at this cap. I mean, that is a very stout cap here. You're just not breaking that right now. And in fact, it probably won't be broken until the forcing increases from the west. So definitely have, again, that elevated instability here. But I just don't think this is going to be with this capping inversion like it is right here. You can see that increase in height there before he kind of goes back to more of that dry adiabatic lapse right there. I just don't think we're going to see any significant tornadoes in this region for quite some time before you really start to see an increase in forcing. So it's kind of your overall synopsis for 0Z. So we'll go back to our radar now, kind of look at what's going on. This storm has kind of dissipated. Seems like it definitely is getting and train now into more of that outflow. So that is likely done producing, or at least have had its tornado threat degraded for now. And then we'll be watching these storms back out to the west here. Most of these are going to be just severe thunderstorm potential, mainly just damaging winds, large hail. We've also got a severe storm that is closing in on Ottawa, Illinois here. This is mainly, again, just for damaging straight line winds. Got an interesting cell out here. We'll look at the Davenport radar here. Got an interesting little cell. This might be a case where it's just elevated. So wait for the radar data to load on that. And here it is. Yeah, that definitely has some semblance of a supercell structure, but I think this is more just a split. I mean, a very large hail though. Actually, in fact, I'm gonna take a look at that. I mean, that is just Jagunda hail. About 25,000. I have not seen this in quite some time, but that is a very large hail core right there. In fact, you've got hail extending just to near 30,000 feet. So, I mean, if you had any airliners, imagine if airliners were flying right through this, get some pretty significant hail. But that is quite the hail core. And in fact, even some 70 DBZs there up to just about 5 to 10,000 feet. So very significant hail core. Could easily see hail approaching 3 inches in diameter or greater on this particular storm. So this is just past Miles. So we're looking really at about Savannah, kind of next in line there. And then eventually, and thankfully, this is kind of traversing rural areas. But Stockton is kind of on the borderline of the severe thunderstorm warning here. Yeah, Yeesh is right. That is... I have not seen a signature like that in honestly quite some time. Thankfully, though, the circulation, there really is none. I mean, there's definitely, a mesocyclone aloft, but there is not a tornado, thankfully. Even picking up here on some 75 plus DBZs here at just about 12,000 feet. Very significant hailstorm. I will say that for sure. Very, very significant hailstorm for sure. 1,000,000%. But thankfully, this will be mostly over rural areas after crossing through Savannah here in the next probably about 10-15 minutes or so. Again, maximum expected hail size here, we're looking at about nearly 3 inches in diameter. That is going to do some very significant damage to any vehicles that are outside, and could even cause some windows to be broken in houses, siding damage for sure with any wind-driven hail. So very significant hailstorm. And this, hailstorms cause a lot of damage. You can get billion-dollar hailstorm disasters, so this is not something to, mess around with either. So we'll be watching this storm as well. That's a very significant looking storm at this particular point in time. And then, of course, we'll be watching our other storms here. The Urbiana storm, new severe thunderstorm warning on that, mainly for the potential of large hail. But elsewise, everything looks okay there. We'll be watching this storm as well, severe thunderstorm warning on it. That was the old storm that we were looking at, but that seems to be mainly outflow driven at the moment. So, again, this is kind of the biggest story so far. It definitely seems like had some circulation earlier, but I think that's weakened, which is obviously good news here. So I think right now we're just kind of really we finally have no tornado warnings, which is some very good news. So I'll take a real quick water break and we'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty. So, again, we're watching this storm right now. This is a major hailstorm right here. I mean, this is a ridiculously major hailstorm. I mean, this could be causing some very significant damage again. You're seeing those hail core here basically going over 20,000 feet. Basically meaning that, you know, even if you're in an airliner, I mean, you're going to be getting in some real serious trouble here for sure. In fact, what I can do real quick here, you can even see that there's very, very significant hail. I mean, we're even seeing 70 dBZs here up to about 5,000 feet, meaning that this thing has a very intense updraft and very large hail in the middle of that. Is this a public free program? So this is a public program. However, it is not free. You have to pay, like, I think $250 or so for this program. So it's unfortunately not cheap. But there is a very good alternative program to this. It's called WSB3. I actually use it, or I've used it in the past on a lot of my recordings, especially during the hurricane season. And I think that thing is only like I'd say about $25 a month. But this program is public, which is great, and there's a lot of like modifications you can do to it. But sadly, it's not free. You gotta all these places, and I could see why they charge an arm and a leg for it, but unfortunately that's just kind of the way it is. But yeah, I can definitely provide you with a link to it if you're interested in either of those programs. So just let me know. But right now, again, this is our main storm of focus right now. I mean, significant hail closing in on just about 3 inches in diameter, and I do think, let's go back to our Des Moines storm as well. So it's not really seeing a whole lot of significant severe weather out here. Definitely got some wind, definitely got some hail, but these are just not your tornado producers that you're really going to be seeing or have seen earlier. Again, I think our biggest storm right now is probably this Laurel storm towards Haverhill, Melbourne. You definitely got some hail on it, about 65 dBz. We can look to see if there's look to see about the hail core. Very small hail core, very small, just about over 20,000 feet here. But you know, this is a very, I would definitely not say this is a very significant hail producer, but still some isolated large hail within the storm is possible, up to about 1 inch in diameter. But I do think that the storm has definitely undergone a weakening trend in the last about 30 minutes or so. And this other storm near Urbana right now towards Center Point. This one also severe thunderstorm warning, generally for large hail. I think most of these storms, as they head further north, are going to be large hail producers. In fact, most of these storms have not produced tornadoes up here. The majority of storms in this vicinity have not produced a tornado today. So that tells me that the environment just does not favor tornadoes up here. Although one is certainly still possible, can't completely rule it out, because thunderstorms like to do whatever they want. And with increasing shear over time, the environment will become a little bit more favorable. Hey, trust me, I know about being a broke college student. Trust me, I know all about that. But meteorology is certainly very interesting. Trust me. I've been blessed to be in this field for as long as I am. Me watching this storm towards Urbana as well. Again, not sold on a tornado threat with this, but mainly just large hail. I think that's probably where you're going to see most of your activity. And again, this storm that just passed Savannah, now crossing into portions of northwestern Illinois. Again, this is a storm capable of producing nearly 3-inch in diameter hail. You can kind of just see that, these tops are not impressive, but you've got some very large hail with it. Actually, we haven't had a volume update here, but this is, again, very capable of producing some very large hail. We're talking over about 3 inches in diameter. Just doing a quick cross section, you can actually kind of see how the hail looks here. We just kind of tilt that a little bit there. Definitely got some very large hail, no doubt about that. Seeing those hail cores actually jump up to about 25,000 feet right up in here, about nearly 26,000 feet up in there. So that is going to be very efficiently transported down to the surface, especially if the thunderstorm does weaken and collapse a bit. That hail is going to come down to the surface, and you could easily see hail that easily goes softball size, about 3 inches in diameter, as this comes down to the surface. So I certainly would not be surprised to see a very, very significant hail threat and some very significant hail reports come out of this storm, for sure. But the overall severe weather threat, I think, is kind of, for the most part right now, just kind of take a broad overview. Right now, we don't have any storms in this vicinity over here. There is virtually no thunderstorms in this entire area. We're watching storms back out to the west right now, over near, Des Moines and surrounding vicinity. Down to the south, that will be approaching Kansas City within about the next hour or so. But generally speaking, the warm sector out here is relatively, clear of convection. A couple of cells, further to the north. Again, these are mainly large hail threats. I think the tornado threat up here is very limited, and they'll be watching, if we actually jump down to the Fort Smith, Arkansas radar, we'll be watching a few storms here that are approaching Little Rock, and any of these particular cells do have the possibility to go tornado warned this evening. Again, a few of these cells right now, nothing severe at the moment, but we do see a couple of stronger cells near Texarkana, near Prescott, and near Emmett as well. Again, these are not severe warned, but just looking at the overall parameters, I am concerned for this evening's severe weather event. Again, this is likely going to be well past midnight we're talking about, but I do think that any of these renegades here could drop a significant or potentially even violent tornado, given the environment down here is relatively untapped and got the great instability and also great kinematics as well. So we'll be watching that. Again, our significant hailstorm still kind of ongoing. Next in line is going to be Stockton, and unfortunately I would be really concerned for that area. Major threat for southeastern Missouri. So we're actually going to go over this right now. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to cover the SPC risk outlines right now. So right now, southeastern Missouri for this evening, I'll kind of bring this up here. There we go. So southeastern Missouri for this evening is generally included in 2 risk areas. You've got a level 2 out of 5 slight risk, and you've got the level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk for kind of that southeastern corner. I do think that tomorrow's threat is going to be greater across this area, with the potential of damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes. For tonight's event, though, for extreme southeastern Missouri, I think it's mainly just going to be wind and, or hail really, and tornadoes. But I will say that, it kind of depends on where you're at exactly. But I will say that the area tonight, and generalizing in southeastern Missouri, has the threat for seeing a few isolated severe storms with the possibility of seeing all modes of severe weather from hail, wind, and tornadoes. But I think the greatest threat is really going to be in that corridor from about Springfield to near Little Rock and basically to the north and east of Dallas. I think that's going to be your biggest risk for tonight's event. But southeastern Missouri does have a risk. So always best to be safe and sorry, and of course have multiple ways to receive warnings. New severe thunderstorm warning on this cell right here. This includes places like Stockton, Warren, Winslow. And again, this is mainly going to be for hail. They're only calling for about 1.5 inches, which is certainly good news. But still, 1.5 inches is more than enough to do some very significant damage. So, again, potentially significant hailstorm coming into Stockton within about the next 10 minutes or so. And then eventually Nora and Winslow, I think, are next in line. And eventually, if this holds together, this may even get into Wisconsin and pose a threat for Monroe and potentially South Wayne as well. And looking up further, if the storm were to continue, this would be on a collision course to near Madison, Wisconsin. But I do think, again, the main threat for this storm is hail, not tornadoes, which is certainly some good news from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about a quick 5-minute just kind of break here, and we'll touch up on the overview and synopsis for this evening's severe weather event, and then we will get back to the radar coverage. So give me about 5 minutes and we will be right back. Alrighty, so we have a few new developments ongoing with this evening's severe weather threat. First of all, we will bring this to the page here. This is a new tornado watch that is likely to be issued, including places like Shreveport, Louisiana, or towards Little Rock, Hot Springs, Pine Bluff here, back into Texas, including places like Longview, So this is a new tornado watch that is likely to get issued in the next couple of hours here, a conditional threat, but definitely SBC notes the potential for isolated supercells to develop with the possibility of seeing a strong, significant tornado risk if any storms become semi-discrete in that environment. So we could be seeing a new tornado watch go up for places of Arkansas, northeast or northwestern Louisiana, and eastern Texas this evening. Again, this will be in that moderate risk zone. So tornado watch likely 80%. Again, supercells are possible in that environment. And then we'll also be watching a new tornado watch that is likely to be reissued here for some of the same areas in Iowa. This is going to be to account for the squall line that is developing. You can see here on the radar, you got the squall line here, and so this is likely going to be covering that squall line. So two new watches that are likely to be issued in the next little while. A couple of storms here. That Walker storm, in fact, is taking on more of an interesting look right now. This is actually looking to reorganize and might actually go on to produce a tornado here. Is actually not okay. So this is just aliased, but or not aliased, but just not good data. But there is a mesocyclone aloft, and that thing is starting to hook around here. It's actually a relatively small supercell as well. I just want to note that we've had some very significant tornadoes ongoing today in Illinois. Actually, one chaser, Chris, I can't remember the last name, but was hit by a tornado while chasing. So thankfully he's okay. But we've had a couple of chasers impacted today from that Illinois tornado from earlier that thankfully missed Peoria and dissipated before then. But we'll be watching this storm. Again, does have a low-level mesocyclone with it. This is only up at about 12,000 feet. Definitely got a meso with it, and definitely a very significant hail core. In fact, again, we'll just kind of look at the overall look here at the storm. Again, very significant hail core. You're talking upwards of about 25,000 feet here on that hail core. Very significant. So we could be seeing, again, hail, 1.5 to 2.5 inches in diameter up here at this particular time. So very significant hail core with that for sure. Not something to fool around with. But again, mainly for the most part, I think most of our storms this evening in this northern mode are probably going to be wind and hail producers. I think the tornado threat has certainly lessened, although increasing shear may promote a better tornado threat later. Again, any of these semi-discrete or discrete cells that form out here away from the main line, which is now through Marshalltown and Des Moines, kind of this main line here, any storms ahead of that have the greatest potential for producing a significant tornado or two as we head through the overnight. But again, pretty significant hail core with this storm as well. I mean, we're approaching 70 dBz, so very significant hail. This will be, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that name, honestly, but it's going to be approaching like Winthrop and Masonville here within probably about the next 15 minutes or so. And then onwards from there towards Dunley, or yeah, I think that's how it's kind of Dundee and over there. So I think we're going to be seeing this storm in the short term. That is probably going to be our best storm to produce a tornado, I do believe, in the short term. Definitely got a low-level cyclone, or definitely a low-level meso with that as well. Not particularly intense. So you're looking at about 6,500 feet. So you are looking aloft at this storm. But I definitely do think that this is probably the best chance for a short-term tornado genesis, if I had to be honest here. So this thing will be moving off again towards the north and east. Again, you can see most of our storms, generally speaking, are well behaved. Large hail is going to be a threat with any storm this evening, but generally speaking, I'm not super, worried about significant tornadoes, but definitely cannot rule one out either. Now we're going to go back here to our Fort Smith, Arkansas radar. I'm actually going to switch this to Little Rock's radar because we'll have a better view of some of these storms. We'll kind of wait for the radar data to load. Again, some storms in this vicinity, nothing particularly intense. Again, this is the area that we're looking for a new tornado watch to be issued within the next hour or so. Again, some of these cells are perking up right now. Still dealing with some capping issues though in this area, so I don't think storms are ready to completely explode yet, but if any one of these storms breaks through the cap, I think there's a significant tornado risk in this vicinity, and I think an even greater threat as we progress throughout the rest of this evening. So, and then we'll check our Quad City, Iowa. Actually, we'll go back up to the Davenport radar. Yeah, so this is actually the Des Moines radar, but generally speaking, I think for the most part, again, you kind of see these lines of storms here. We're actually going to be dealing with some storms approaching Kansas City, capable of producing large hail, damaging wind in about the next hour. So these will be moving through Kansas City. Nothing really of note. Again, just pretty much a squall line, capable of producing, again, wind and hail for the most part. And then moving up here to Des Moines, we've had a pretty significant storm pass Des Moines just a little while ago. That did bring some hail as well. But for the most part, again, this is mainly non-tornadic in nature. And then we'll go back to our Chicago radar here because we do have a storm that is approaching kind of the northern side here of Plainfield. And again, this, generally speaking, is all going to be, yeah, this is mainly just elevated. In fact, this is actually beginning to weaken as it heads on the northern kind of side there of Plainfield. So this is not a particular threat anymore, which is good. So I do think that this severe thunderstorm warning will be allowed to drop here relatively soon. And then we'll be watching other storms near Little Rock. And again, our greatest tornado threat, I think, right now is going to be with the storm passing between Winthrop and Mason here within probably about the next 15 minutes or so. So I think we're going to be right back. We'll probably take about a 5-minute break, and we will be right back. right. We are back, continuing our live severe weather coverage at the moment. Again, we'll be watching this particular storm. Still not really doing too much of anything at the moment, which is obviously some good news. No significant tornado threat, at least shaping up with this. In fact, it also looks like it's probably going to become outflow dominant. I just don't think many of these storms up here to the north tonight are going to be prolific tornado producers. I obviously can't rule out, an isolated tornado or two, but I just think these storms tonight are not producing, or not really going to produce these significant long-track violent tornadoes up here into Iowa, which is obviously really good. I think our greatest threat for now, especially for any very significant tornadoes, is going to be this southern mode here. We've seen a few storms pop up in the last hour or so, and these are very small storms. They're not, very intense at all. But a few of these storms, may, if they're able to break through the cap, I do think that they pose probably the greatest tornado threat, especially as we go through the rest of the night. I think this is probably going to be the area where the greatest tornado potential exists as it progresses throughout the rest of the evening. And then looking at the Chicago, Illinois radar, and this one cell right here, really going under sub-severe limits at this point, so not really even a significant threat. We'll jump back to the Quad Cities radar again. Had this storm right here, the Stockton storm, and that did produce hail that was measured over 1.75 inches, so very significant hail there, and that continues to be a significant hail producer as it has now moved north of Stockton, now going to include places or impact places like Winslow and Nora, and then cross into Wisconsin, where the threat then again will be more towards Monroe, even Orangeville out here in Iowa, or I'm sorry, far northern Illinois, and then Monticello potentially is also going to be potentially impacted over there into Wisconsin. So right now, again, we're just kind of watching these storms. They're, struggling to really organize tonight. Mainly large hail producers at this time. Tornado threat is there, but it is a lot less. I certainly don't think that the significant tornado threat is there, but there's still some pretty good thermodynamics up here, so you could get an isolated sigtor, but right now just not really seeing that come to fruition at this particular point. We'll take a look here at the HRRR forecast. This is the latest 0-1Z run here, a 1Z run. Again, you notice that there's some discrete storms in Arkansas, Missouri, but generally speaking, these storms are going to have a tougher time sustaining. We'll just kind of pick a random sounding in northern Arkansas. The environment is pretty favorable. The hodograph, there's some wonkiness to the hodograph here. Not the most ideal for significant tornadoes, but it would be enough to definitely squeeze a tornado out. 1,000,000% for sure. But I think the threat is going to be highest, really into the overnight and early morning hours for sure. So I really think that the best threat for severe storms is going to come in the overnight hours. I just don't see there being a huge threat, at least right now, but we'll be watching things very carefully. Again, a couple of severe storms. These are non-tornadic at this particular point, but a couple of severe storms towards Masonville and Winthrop right now. Again, that was a big hail threat. And we'll be watching, again, this kind of QLCS line, this quasi-linear convective system, looking like it's going to be pushing through in the next couple of hours into the area. And again, Kansas City is right on this line here. Kansas City is right here. Got a couple of severe storms out to the west of Kansas City currently. So a couple of strong to severe storms. Generally, though, we're down to 8 severe thunderstorm warnings. So overall, it's not a actually 7 now, but not really getting a significant severe weather threat right now. We're kind of in this lull between the evening events, but we're going to be watching a few of these storms. It definitely could be tornado producers later into the evening, so we'll be watching these things very carefully. So once again, we've got a couple of severe storms ongoing out across portions of Iowa and crossing into Wisconsin right now, even some out near Kansas City at this point. But again, we're down to 6 severe thunderstorm warnings and not really seeing any significant tornado potential. Certainly going to be some large hail in some isolated locations as we progress out through the next couple of hours. I do think, again, we're going to be watching a couple of storms near Little Rock, Arkansas, but not really seeing any significant threats right there. And of course, nothing really ongoing near Chicago. In fact, that severe thunderstorm warning was recently allowed to expire for that storm near Geneva. So I think at this particular point in time, honestly, I believe with the downtrend in severe weather that we've seen, given that we have very sparse severe weather at this point, I think we're going to leave it right now on a broad overview of our weather map here. And if we get any more significant severe weather in the next couple of hours, I will be sure to pop back on here to do all the commentary and stuff like that. But I think for now, I am going to actually go do what I need to do, kind of look at some weather models and see what's kind of going on for the overnight. And I'll probably be checking in sporadically. And of course, if we get any tornado warnings, I'll be sure to jump back right back on. So the stream will continue. Be looking at the radar here. I will be gone for roughly a little bit here, probably about 20-30 minutes. I'll kind of hop back on. We'll kind of go over some of the new data for the overnight. And of course, if we get any severe weather in between that time, I will be sure to kind of come back and kind of jump in on that, especially if we get any like tornado warnings or anything like that. Since we're only down to 6 severe thunderstorm warnings, I think it's kind of appropriate to do that. So you'll be looking at a radar presentation here. I'll kind of back this out, and so you can see all the kind of the warnings for these areas, and I'll be sure to update as time progresses. So I'll catch you guys here in a little bit, and elsewise, and enjoy.